Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second installment of the cross-stage Think Big. For some of us, this is our second trial, and for some of us, this is the first time we've been here. So thank you, everyone, for coming to join us. For those of you who haven't gone through one of these, I wanted to give a high-level overview of what we're doing today here at this Think Big, a little bit of the history, and then I'll let the designers jump into their topics for conversation. Nadia had a really good idea to start with why, how, and what circles. So I figured that's the perfect way to walk through this. The why, that we're all here and we're all discussing this, we've heard from our users that the experience between stages is often disjointed. I know I've heard that from user interviews. We heard it in the SUS testing, where they kind of do an overview of the entire thing. And so we know there's opportunity here for us to create really powerful experiences. How are we going to try to solve for this? The idea was to bring together product managers and designers from cross stages to openly discuss opportunities that could bring the cross-stage experience for our users to be better. And what is it we're actually going to do? That's where the monthly cross-stage Think Big session came from. We did it one session before this with what used to be the CI/CD team. We had a really good time, I think. We went through a session where we got to have 3 different topics of ways that we could collaborate across our stage. From there, we had some learnings. We also had some great results. So we did a retrospective and we learned. So we'll jump into some of the things that we've changed. Like I mentioned, we originally planned for 4 different areas and topics to talk about during Think Big. We managed to get to 3, and everyone kind of struggled. That was really, really quick. So the first change is that we dropped it down to just 2 topics today. Each one gets about 25 minutes. So we have 2 different stages that are going to be showing some ideas and areas for conversation. One thing that is kind of important that I want to call out is to make sure that we're accountable. We want to create issues or label issues with the Think Big label so that we know that conversations that we're having here today are turning into GitLab friendly async issues and features that are getting into the backlog and whatnot. The exciting news is that we have 6 of those issues created from our last Think Big. So in theory, that's 6 new ideas or ideas we got to discuss that will better enable our users across stage, which I think will have a really powerful impact. That's kind of it for the introduction. So I will turn it over to release management, who's going to take our first topic.
Hi, Anna, do you want to cover this or do you want me to?
I can highlight, I can start, and then, yeah.
Perfect.
Pass it over to you.
Can I ask a quick question before we start that? Something new on the agenda I noticed is schedule. I didn't notice that last time. What is that? Is that meant to say this is the focus, or only the product designer teams in those areas need to participate?
That's a really great question, a great call out. The schedule we put above is just the cycle of what team is going to be presenting for that Think Big. So for the 9th of April, we have release and verify. That was just kind of an assignment of when people should talk so that we could get started. That's pretty flexible if we want to change it. The idea is that we should all be coming as best we can to these sessions so that we can cross-stage collaborate in areas of opportunity we may not have known about otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
And this may be a subject to change in the future. As it mentioned in the comments, we're gonna learn from these sessions that we are having. Maybe we are too big of a crowd. Maybe we're gonna find a better way to communicate. So this is a pilot, we are experimenting. So, and we are also waiting for the feedback in the retro sessions after that.
All right, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So for release management, we want to discuss a little bit how we can make environments easier to use and manage, and also to understand what challenges other teams and other designers and product managers have encountered while working with environments. For now, we're considering delivering a dashboard that shows the top 8 metrics on a group level. And this came from Jackie's interviews, and the majority of pain points from the users were related to not have the ability to see like the health or the status of the projects on a group level. And it's a very good point that if management isn't happy with GitLab or with the interface of the information that they consume, it really slows down the adoption of a product across the companies. and looking also at other competitors. They are very good at showing everything that is going on in a project or in a release, and everything around environments, deployments, etc. So this is our big item of the moment. And Jackie, maybe you want to share some of the results from your surveys and the ongoing interviews.
Definitely. So the environment's job to be done is something that I learned about after interviewing our customers and users about how they navigate through GitLab and how they utilize different objects. I found out that environments is a really wide array of different functionalities that people are using it for. We also learned that people are more inclined to use environments if we could offer better secrets variable management, if we're able to offer things like advanced deployments, which includes rollback support, and if we were able to share across groups and projects better. So when I say environments being shared across groups are better, they're expecting to be able to administer environments at a group level so that that is a resource that can be consumed by different projects, rather than having a duplicate environment that is represented as the same environment in two separate projects in GitLab with a variable that's like copy pasted over, right? Some of the respondents from the survey, we had about 65 responses. 10% of those responses didn't really know what an environment was, which is okay. If we were to extrapolate that out to all of our customers, that is a pretty large base, right? That means a lot of our customers really don't know what environments are, or they understand that they are a representation of a deployment, but may not really understand the utility or value of using them as a GitLab customer. So this means we can do something to make environments more discoverable and perhaps a little bit easier to act on when there's something wrong with an environment, like if there's a failed job associated with it, or if there's a violation of a regulation from the compliance side of the house, something to really think of and expand on. And then lastly, a lot of the people felt that environments were secure and they were flexible and they could support multi-cloud deployment. So the 80% of people, really 90% of people who absolutely knew what environments were for, felt like they could use them with confidence, which is really great, because one of the assumptions that I was going into the survey was that people weren't using environments, they weren't deploying with GitLab because they didn't feel like our solution was secure. Because that is, whenever you Google GitLab environments or how to set up deployments, that is one of the things that comes back on the community or Stack Overflow as being a problem. So Hannah articulated a really great job to be done here. And that is absolutely the core job to be done that we are untying with our customers. And it started with how do we generate visibility across all projects in a group with the CI/CD dashboard. And now we're refining that for in our validation cycle on the product side and design side for environment specifically. When I look across all of our different activities, just when opportunity canvases get presented to Scott and then posted in the product channel, I realize there's a lot of opportunity for me to hook in with the CI/CD dashboard and either consume metrics that are coming out of other stages or redisplay information in a meaningful way. I'm hoping that this ThinkBIG can be an opportunity for all of us to connect and think about what is a way to really make that something powerful for all of our customers. Any questions on that? And as you can see, there's a lot of user research insights, and there's still more that I need to add. I've conducted 5 interviews between Tuesday last week and yesterday for the environment's job to be done. So I'll be uploading a lot of new user insights to the UXR Insights repository specific to people's struggles with environments, environment variables, secrets management, advanced deploys. So pretty excited about that.
And I also added as a point here, if anyone has any upcoming item or any upcoming efforts in your product vision that matches in what we're talking about here. And I already stalked a little bit, and I could find one item for progressive delivery that it's about, what is this? I think it's, secret variables at the group level. And it's scheduled for 13 .o. So Mike, I'm sure you're not going to be the DRI, but you want to talk a little bit about that, or do you have anything to share on this topic?
Comes that awkward moment when I have to admit that I've barely been listening and not even sure what we're talking about, honestly. Sorry.
Oh shit, that's really rough to hear. I just spent a lot longer talking than I really wanted to. So here's the quick recap. We're doing things on environments, and we're learning that people don't like the way that we manage environments at the project level. They want to see it at the group level. Something that Progressive Delivery has on their docket for 13 is this idea of typed AWS variables at the group level, which is really tied to something that we're trying to do over in release.
Yeah, it does bring up an interesting question of how do external deployments and deployments, right? That's the big question of all right, it's out there, it's on AWS, and you tie it back to GitLab, and it's struggling to say it, but basically it's that interesting thing that what exists on GitLab in that list of environments isn't really the environments, right? There's always been that confusion that ooh, I can go to GitLab and manage my environments, but really those environments live out in AWS, right? If let's say you are deploying to AWS or whatever cloud you're deploying to. So to me, that's always been an interesting problem that really what we have in GitLab is pointers to these things. And it's the stopping and starting and deleting and what does that actually mean? So to get back to the question, how that relates to AWS, I think it's something we have to consider because it makes that problem, with Kubernetes and the Google GKA stuff, where we already have kind of a tighter integration, it's still a problem, but it's less of a problem. And as we move to other cloud providers, the problem is going to get worse of, what exists in GitLab is just pointers to environments that oftentimes do live in other clouds. So, not proposing solutions, it's really raising more problems here.
Yeah, so specific to the issue that Hannah highlighted, this is about really connecting secrets management and how we're going to manage secrets with AWS type variables. So it's interesting. I'm interested in learning about how you're expecting people to administer those, in the front end.
So right now,
where are they going to go? Yeah.
I really think that the end state for them needs to be Vault. Honestly, as we were doing the secrets kind of management thing, the security team kind of came back with, this isn't AWS's preferred way of storing those. But what we do know right now is people are using them. So really all we've done in that issue that we were talking about was give a convenience. We know people are currently inputting them by hand. And anytime you type a long string by hand, your error rate goes up. So really all we've done is kind of an autocomplete for them to give a user experience convenience. But really at the end of the day, we're storing them no differently than any other kind of variable, very texty, not texty, but you know what I'm saying? There's nothing special about them other than we know the pattern and we're completing for them. Is really what that issue is about.
Okay. Are you building out a reusable component for that autocomplete, or is that something that we already have?
I think they are utilizing something that we already have. It'll be new to the variables world, but we do have autocomplete in other parts of the UI.
Got it. Interesting. So Ori and I have been connected about this issue a little bit because something that I'm learning around secrets management, which is a completely different topic, is that users may not want to use Vault to store their secrets. So if that's the case, we need to kind of figure out how do we want to expose endpoints. And one opportunity for us to kind of reuse what we already have is the group variable API for this use case, so that we can expose, if you are storing them at the group level, these AWS typed variables. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but that would be one way to help integrate our things together.
I did just think of a positive thing. So I threw out some more problems, but now here's a possible opportunity, right? So going back to the variable thing, we do have this, like, you go to the settings UI, you put in your variables here, and ultimately they do relate back to these environments, right? Like these are your keys to the castle to get to this environment. It would be interesting to build a loop back into either maybe like just through a link, or maybe actually exposing like the ability to configure those variables from the environment's UI, right? Like, wait, I don't have the credentials right for this, or I need to update the credentials and I know it relates to this environment, rather than the current flow where it is now dig through settings, hope you find that. That would be an interesting little link back to that to say, well, we know you were using these variables for this environment. Here's a link to the settings, or maybe even like, here is those variables right here in this UI, and force you to not have to go back into the settings. That might be an interesting one.
Okay. I would say that variables, when we look at the bifurcation between how people are expecting secrets and CI variables to be handled differently, there isn't a really great distinction in our UI today. They're all handled in the same place. So I'm tackling in another kind of topic is how to create that separation inside of our UI, because secrets are treated inherently different than just CI variables that can be handled with any job.
Yeah, I think to me, I think in settings, right? Settings has gotten to become such a beast that it's just almost impossible to find things. So I think it's not the kind of thing that we're shrinking, right? Our settings is growing and growing. So I think eventually we're going to need things like search, or what I was kind of just mentioning. I think we're probably going to have to go to a system where like settings become more contextual in whatever part of the UI you're in, whether that is accessing settings right then and there, or at least giving you links back into the settings section itself. Because it's just, as our settings section grows, this problem just continues to get worse. And I don't see a day when we're going to start reducing settings anytime soon.
Okay. So going back to up top, I know that we kind of got a little off track here, since we wanted to bring up a more unified approach to the CI/CD dashboard that we're building. Hayana has linked that issue there. And Tao, I see that you have a bunch of issues that are considered environment-related scope. I'm interested in learning about if you have anything like a concerted vision, or if you're going to undergo some validation around environments.
I don't think she's in the call anymore.
Oh, okay.
I've seen also Victor was trying to unmute himself earlier. I'm not sure if Victor, you had something to add. I was trying to add your name in the comments, but
yeah, I've seen him as well. Actually, the discussion moved on, and I don't have anything to add anymore. So.
I just wanted to add something about Mike mentioned about the settings being like this snowball that keeps growing and growing as we keep adding things. And of course, for the sake of like environment variables and like secrets, there's already kind of like that, I don't know, there's like that friction to find things, but I think it doesn't help either that right now we have settings at the different levels. I mean, not that we can do something about that, but there's settings at the group level, there's settings at the project level, you know. And if you are using EE, there's actually an admin that also has settings, right? And even if, like, very contextually, if you start analyzing what GitLab is, there's even settings for you as a user when you go and you click on your profile, you know, and where you have your access tokens and your SSH keys and your preferences, active sessions, all that stuff, right? So yeah, I'm just bringing that up because there's definitely a lot of area of, like, a lot of surface for friction here when, like, we keep adding things, and I think we don't have a great mental model for how our settings are displayed in GitLab. So kind of like in the spirit of thinking big, I think that's something else that we should consider, right? Like the settings, how are we gonna manage that towards the future? How are we gonna make sure that this doesn't become a point for failure when it comes to our user experience? I don't know. I thought that I wanted to bring that up.
Okay, awesome. That's good.
Yeah, that was a great call out one. Thank you. We added future topics down at the bottom of the notes, so we could definitely bring that up. I did kind of have a question. I'm noticing a theme across some of the stages, and I'm just curious if everyone is having this experience. A lot of our users, when they're talking about the group level of everything, so at the container registry, they want to know, like, the most recent tags at the group level. Have you noticed that there's a really large difference between what you need at a project level versus a group level? Or have you kind of seen that they're pretty much just stacks of each other?
So I have seen it being an aggregation. Our customers are expecting very similar behaviors at the project level, at the group level, and really they want to be able to do everything that they can at the project level, at the group level. So some of the experiences that are jarring, I remember watching a customer go through releases, and they go to their group and they're like, I wish I could find my releases here. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm sorry. We only do that as a project right now.
I will agree with that, but kind of like in a different way, because that's what we're doing right now with Runner. Is that, for instance, we have something going on which is allowing people to manage runners from the group level. I think what I see that it's something that's quite common is that people want to have like an admin, like a place where they go and they say, I have like 20 projects and I want to disable the share runners for these projects, or I want to, create specific runners for this project. Because like what people are doing right now is that they have to go to the project, and then they have to go to the settings, and then they have to set up the environment variables, or like they have to set up the runners for that project. And then if they have 15 projects, then they have to do that 15 times, right? So I think many people, what I see is that they are demanding, like, give me like an admin, an admin where I can go and I can just basically create all these things in bulk, manage all the settings for all my projects. So I feel that it's my impression that we're using groups as like the catch-all for an admin, since there's a lack of an admin in .com, I think we're using groups for that, which is okay. I don't think that that's a bad thing, but I
have a little bit of a different experience. I don't think it is an admin, because my persona that typically asks for those groups are people who are coordinating across multiple projects, which are typically the developer team lead and the release manager. Not really an admin. Like, they don't really care about naming or changing badges across groups or adding members like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I feel what you're saying, but so can you explain one specific use case where they are at the group level and they want to do something that affects all the projects?
Yeah, so I'm a release manager. I want to see all of my failed last jobs on my environments at the group level, so that I can then triage them to my developer team leads. That's a very common use case for release managers.
Got it. Okay, so that's pretty interesting, because the cases that I'm seeing in Runner is like, I want to also see everything, but I also want to be able to manage things, So, turning off runners, seeing all the jobs for all the projects and maybe rerunning jobs from the group level, while having the ability to see to what project does it belong, you know. So I don't know, it's interesting. It feels that for different personas means different things. I definitely am seeing that in Runner, it's a lot like group is the admin level, basically.
I have a mixed experience with package where we have some of our users, they want the group level just to be the culmination of everything that's all the packages and all the containers that are produced in all the different all the different projects they work with. And then I have a like completely separate admin that just wants like statistics and highlights, which is a very different experience. And they want that at that group. They are both saying they want it at the group level view. Just to share that context, it's interesting that we have that duality.
I also think it makes it more problematic whenever we start adding more dashboards and more analytics. So in testing right now, I know James is working on a testing dashboard for code coverage. It kind of leads me to think about us needing to have concerted analytics journeys. So at what point are we expecting someone to fall on this analytics page, and how do we want to drive them to a certain action? Because analytics shouldn't be here's a pretty display for you. It should be we want you to do this type of action. And I don't think we have a concerted analytics strategy in the ops section today.
I agree. I think that is an awesome point. I'm definitely taking notes. These are going to turn into issues, which is even better. We're about halfway through our session, and so I'd like to transition over to testing. You're up.
That's me. So James is not here because he's double booked with our weekly, our weekly testing, grooming, and planning. So I'm representing both product and UX on this one. But I'll make sure that he sees this. And we're not recording. Crap.
Yeah, we are. We're recording this.
We are. It's
we
okay.
are.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, for me it doesn't show up, but it's okay. All right. Okay, so I'll share the video with him and then like the notes. But anyways, so the topic that I wanted to bring up, which I feel that it's very relevant to a cross-stage cross-stage interest, is discoverability. I'm gonna talk specifically about testing discoverability, but I think this is gonna resonate with people, with other people in this call. So what we're seeing is that right now testing has a lot of solutions, right? It has built-in CI suites that you can set up on your GitLab CI YAML file, and they can do they can show you code coverage, they can show you code quality, they can show you accessibility. Now we have accessibility. There's so many things that we're doing right now in testing. So, but what we're seeing is that testing, it's not super discoverable. I mean, like people set it up and everything, and then they get the MR widgets, and the MR widget seems to be like the final place where like the experience finishes for them. But there's more to see for testing, right? Like if you go to the pipeline, there's a testing tab. There's also a code quality tab, and there's more information to handle, manage, and consume there. And I think we are seeing that there's not enough discoverability, or there are not good paths for people to reach those areas. So I put a couple of examples. One, it's an issue that we're working on that's trying to actually surface that path for one of our test suites. And then the other one is something that Sid brought up on this project that he's working on, and he said that he couldn't see the code quality results, and he was kind of confused. So those are two very specific examples, but I think this has different angles. It populates from different point of views. You know, it's vague. So I think it manifests in the UI in different ways. So I think this doesn't make sense until I show it. So I'm gonna share my screen, just do a quick demo of what I'm talking about. So just share these. All right. So this is your typical MR view, right? So you are on this merge request, and then you come here, and then you start seeing your like the results for your merge request here. So you see the pipeline when it gets approved. You see when there's metric reports change from 50 points. Okay, that's interesting. So you expand these, right? And then you see these, and you're, oh, okay. There's some changes in the gem size and whatever. That's kind of one good example of something that basically ends here, right? Like at this point, there's nothing else for you to do. But the fact is that there's more things for you to do, right? So another example is, let me find. This one doesn't have it. Well, the one that I have in the issue, and I can show this one, it's easier to see it in the issue. There's usually when you get tests, there's when the MR runs the test, it basically tells you like the changes that happen, and eventually you can see those things here. You can actually click and you can see like the excerpt of the test. But again, that doesn't give you the full context, right? So one of the things that we want to allow people is to see the view the full report. So what we want to do right now is kind of fix this by you know, adding a similar button to the one that we have to security. But that's, for me, that still feels a little bit of like a band-aid, because I think there should be a better ways to discover what's going on. One example, so this is the view that we want people to see. This contains the full report. And apparently from what we see, like for instance, that feedback provided by Sid, he couldn't get to this point. He didn't have a clear path to get to this view, right? Because he was using commits, he was not creating MRs. And if you go to his, if you go to his commit and you see this thing, like he was basically going into the job view, and he couldn't see how to basically see those results for the code quality. So the code quality is here and it passed, but he's not seeing the test. So how can he reach here to that place? There's nothing. Like you click this, it's like a recursive thing that keeps bringing you here. So that's not a way to discover it. It happens to be that if you want to see your code quality results, you have to go to the pipeline view, and then the code quality tab is there, and then you see it here, right? So that's basically what's happening, is that many things are combined and are finalizing this pipeline page, but I don't think there's a full clear path to reach this page. I wanted to show something here. Another interesting thing to see here is usually when you run a pipeline, something that you will do is you will go and you will review the pipeline summary here. So for instance, in this case, you see that, let's say that the test was not passed, was failed, and then you click on this. And then let's say that you want to see so you're on the test stage, you're reviewing the test stage, and then you want to actually go and see the test results. So it seems that there should be a way to review the test results for this stage. But if you click this is just going to take you to the job, which again, like basically locks you into this, I don't know, into this weird recursive state, and it's not taking you to the right place, which is the pipeline view. And when you click in the pipeline view, then you actually can see the tests here, which are these ones that have tests. So yeah, I basically wanted to just open it up and see if this is an issue for other people, how we can improve discoverability. I think my early thoughts on this is that it seems that discoverability of features, it's like a generalized problem in GitLab. I kind of like sometimes hear this from other people that it's like, oh, people can't find feature flags, or people can't find the auto DevOps, you know, that type of stuff, you know. Another early thought and insight that I had was, do we hide too many things? I feel that I kind of feel that we hide many things intentionally. We say like, oh, because this feature is not enabled, instead of disabling that feature and like showing it as disabled, we just basically hide it completely, which of course doesn't aid for discoverability. So that's kind of like another early thought is, do we hide too many things? And should we instead show those things as disabled? And the final thought that I have is, are we hurting our own adoption of our tools by being this vague? You know, like sometimes I feel that testing could have way more adoption if we were more prescriptive about the way that we show our features, or like upsell these opportunities to test or to enable testing in the projects. And I don't think we do enough for that. It basically is, people want it, so they go and Google it and then they enable it, but we don't give an opportunity to for people to discover these things when they are like having their GitLab experience. I think that's pretty much a summary of the thoughts that I had.
That was great. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to jump in because I have been having a similar experience with just the newer features or different features. We're kind of struggling to get users to use them unless, like you described, they go and Google or look in our documentation about how to do it and then they discover it. I've had users, the container registry is usually just available. And I've talked to users and they didn't even know we had a package manager, even though they're almost like on equal footing in terms of features. Our package manager is even more different maturity level, and they still had no idea it was there. So we're having that issue too. But to your original point of ways we could make testing a little bit more discoverable, I just did some solution validation with users around the container registry, and we were asking them to troubleshoot a problem. We gave a really campy story of like, your manager told you nothing except something is wrong. What would you do? And a couple of the users actually said that if the tag was built through the CI, they would want a way to quickly either know the test passed in association with that image or some sort of relationship there. I didn't dive in. I should have, because that would have been awesome for this conversation. But I've heard users want to have a connection between their images and the tests when they're trying to troubleshoot. That could be another area we could explore and how we can get users to that testing screen more efficiently.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think you're right. That's definitely something that we have to also consider. I think there's I think the tactical concern right now, it's like, how do we take people to that page, you know? And sometimes I have like this little concern that page is not caught in it, you know, that we might need like something different, but that basically broadens the scope of this problem. And yeah, I don't want to kind of like go down that route. I think initially what I want to make sure is that people are aware that we have very robust testing capabilities. Some of them are built in their CI. They just need to like set up like a couple of things on their GitLab CI YAML file. And like code quality is a great example. That one is like so easy to set up. And I don't think many people are adopting that as much as they should, I think. Yeah,
how many
so I don't know.
have unit tests or code coverage tests enabled, do you know, in our CI population?
That's a great question, which I don't it's a shame that James is not here because he probably will know that. But
Sorry, question
I can find.
Get it. Sorry. Yeah, thanks, Jackie's documenting.
Because it could be that we're not, the discoverability isn't the problem. It's like, what's the journey that we need to lead people to? So if we want them to be, like if it's a developer that we're trying to encourage use, then we want to talk about their build process and maybe package as the upstream part that we drive them to. But then I can see release being just as useful in that case too.
Right. Yeah, I think the problem here is this is kind of like how to say it. This is kind of like the same problem with two different phases. One is how do you drive adoption through discoverability, right? Like, so you have a fresh project and you want to enable code quality. What's the best way to do that, right? That's one thing. But I think once you have code quality, it's not super clear how you can use it besides like that MR widget tells you like, oh, your code quality dropped 5 points. You know, that's the extent of the current discoverability of the issue. But we do have more things to show, like the code quality tab at the pipeline level, you know? So I think it's the same problem, two different phases. That's why I open up with like a more generic statement about, is discoverability an issue in general? You know, do we, like, I feel sometimes that we hide too many things, right? And
hiding is the word that's kind of throwing me there. I feel like we have just so much that you can do with GitLab in so many different ways that we don't really prescribe one way to accomplish something. So therefore people don't really know like, oh, that this feature is available for me to use to accomplish my problem.
Yeah. I'm trying to find like a word that is not hiding that, I think a great example is if, I'm just gonna give a hypothetical example, right? But like you have an MR, right? And you with a pipeline, it runs the MR runs the pipeline. It shows you all the results, right? Let's say that you don't have code quality enabled for that. I think my question, and it's like a super rhetoric question, trying to like elicit a conversation here is, should we show a dummy MR widget that says like, oh, it seems that you don't have code quality enabled. Do you want to enable code quality, right? Or is that too much? Is that like an upsell that feels too pushy and we shouldn't do that at all? That's kind of what, because I would love to do that, but that also feels that if we go down that route, like many people are going to adopt the same way of, you know, pushing their features, and then it becomes basically adware, which is something that I don't want to happen for GitLab. So
I think it depends. It really just depends on how we do it. So I've seen places where it's done in a really nice way. Obviously, if you want to upsell, I don't know, premium features to starter user, then if I would be the starter user, I'd be pretty upset that, guys, I decided on this package with a purpose. On the other hand, if I'm on the free tier and people are actually showing me paying features and I can even try them, I don't know, for a short time, then that can really drive my interest. On the other hand, if I'm a subscriber, that would change. But this is something that can be validated, I think.
That's a great point too, because quite honestly, I didn't think about that. There's also the fact that we have paid and unpaid features, like things that you get in core and things that you can only get like gold or like ultimate or whatever. So that's another consideration, right? Like if I don't think we should upsell necessarily things that are like from like the next tier. And if we, because that feels a lot like ads, but maybe the experience that I was trying to, maybe the experience that I was trying to paint here was, let's say if you're paying for gold and you have all these features, we should try to be more prescriptive about, hey, you have features that you're not using. You like GitLab is way more powerful and you're paying money for this. You should try this, you know?
Okay, let me add then a bit more structure to this. I would say that we have three options. One is when I'm a paying customer, and I think we agree that we don't want to upsell from different tier. That I would totally agree with that. I totally agree with you as well that that we definitely would like to encourage using the features in your current tier that you are currently unaware of or don't use them. On the other hand, I would even say that if you're a free user, I would be happy to kind of invite you. Like there are plenty of apps that do that just try this out for free, and because that could be something that after that I said, whoa, I love GitLab even as a free tool, but this is really cool that I just received here with a few clicks of the button.
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider.
But I agree with the second category as well, totally.
Have you talked to the group, like growth team?
Like
any yeah, okay. Because they're doing a lot of this stuff. Like Tim Hay is creating triggers, and like how can we encourage people's behaviors based on triggers? He might be.
I haven't, but I will. Now that you brought that up, that's a great. That's definitely something to consider. So yeah, I'll talk with them because they probably have already ideas on how to do this.
They're also really great if you do have an idea of a way to like not cross sell, but exchange the idea that you could better utilize GitLab. They're really excited about sharing the idea and will offer a lot of tips and strategies of how to track adoption to see if it really is helping. So like, should you continue doing stuff like that or not? So that conversation with them is really powerful. I would really encourage you to do it.
For sure. No, that makes sense. That sounds like the perfect team to talk about this. Yeah. Any other comments?
We have 2 minutes left. Any like golden nuggets that anyone's holding on to?
Do we do anything when we've launched new features to let people know what's new? Is there any components to GitLab that does anything like that? Like the new Slack just came out. If you quit and relaunch, it's got the nice package, gift box thingy. What's new? Do we do anything like that?
I think we just do the release. I think just the release page where like people go and see like, oh, 13.0 is out. There's like a million features. I think that's what we do.
We also have a banner UI component that I think is specifically designed to be like marketing centric so that you can add that to different parts of your UI. So we're using it now. We're going to try anyway to demonstrate the dependency proxy. And it's just an alert saying, hey, this is a thing now, you can do it. So that's another. But as everyone is kind of mentioning, you need to be careful with how many of those you end up using.
Yeah, of course, that's a problem. Because I see this as there's two issues. There's one is if there's something new, people don't know it. And then two, if you're in a use case, like it's been weeks since that new thing's been released, you're doing a specific use case and you should be using this thing, but you don't even know it's there. How do we make them aware of that? I see this as two areas of improvement, I guess.
Yeah,
of course you can upsell.
Wonderful.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We are at time. We had 2 great conversations around 2 different product areas. Hopefully, we're going to be walking away with some great ideas. As always, if we can go through the notes and whatever new ideas or new things that we should be trying, we should break those out into issues. Let's make sure to add that ThinkBIG label so that we can track and see if this is continuing to be successful. This is only our 2nd trial, and a lot of things have changed. So we are, of course, going to do another retro, just like Nadia. So if you'd like to jump in. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I see also there are some comments and questions in the chat room. If we have a retro issue, we do, and I want to just leave it in the chat, but it's also somewhere in this document. Ian, if you maybe can help me to highlight it and also leave that in the comments. And also I would like to encourage every PM or the product designer, product manager who is creating any issues for the follow-up of these sessions, please leave the ThinkBIG label. This helps us for future traceability of the process, and yeah, helps us to see what outcomes we have received out of these sessions. And yeah, we'll be happy to see any feedback, positive, negative, neutral, in the retro sessions. As Ian said, these are the trials and the experiments, so we would like to improve this. Please leave us your suggestion. Did I mention everything, Ian? Are we forgetting anything?
No, that was wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ian, for making this happen.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you. It was great.